Welcome to this edition of the Techies webinar series. My name is Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. We are technology and business reporters at TOI, and both of us have been with TOI for a long time. The two of us will moderate this discussion. Our discussion today is on the opportunities and challenges in deep tech startups. Deep tech is about scientific research and innovative engineering, which then leads to the creation of highly innovative technology products and ventures. India is beginning to see some good successes in this space, but there are plenty of challenges too. To discuss this, we have with us today two young professionals who have been building deep tech ventures. We have Anupama Engineer. Anupama is a COO and co-founder of Weinnovate Biosolutions. Weinnovate is developing next-gen medical products that can prevent and control infections. Anupama has previously worked as a scientist at Agrawal Research Institute and at Thomas Baker's Bioscience. Anupama has also taught graduate and postgraduate students in biotechnology and microbiology. Anupama has a dream to lead the entire women entrepreneur fraternity in India to an independent and dignified level. In her free time, Anupama loves singing, gardening, and going on nature trips. Welcome, Anupama.
Thank you. Thank you, team.
And we have with us Dhruv Agrawal. Dhruv is CEO at Aether Biomedical. Aether is a biomedical robotics company with the goal of making bionics accessible to all. Dhruv joined Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College to pursue MBBS in 2016, but soon he dropped out to start Aether Biomedical. It was initially a college club project, but Dhruv transformed it into a startup. In 2018, part of the team decided to move to Poland to continue their expansion into Europe. And Dhruv is actually speaking to us from Poland right now. Over time, they have raised over €1 million in private financing and have been part of prestigious public research grants such as Robot Union and NCBR Fast Track. They launched their first product, ZS, in the third quarter of 2020, and since then have expanded their distribution footprint to 9 countries in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Dhruv is passionate about merging medicine and technology and digitizing healthcare to help people get better faster.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you so much. I'm sure my mom would have gotten a mini heart attack after reliving this dropping out experience if she's hearing.
I'm sure, absolutely. That too, medical and all that. How many years did you study?
1.5.
1.5 years. Okay, yeah. Any parent would get a heart attack. Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I will put them to Anupama and Dhruv. Both of them have short presentations. They will make those presentations first, and then Shilpa and I will start the Q&A. Like I said, you can send in your questions through the Facebook comment box. Dhruv is making the first presentation. So Dhruv, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to share my screen here now.
Yeah.
Prepared some small things to give an introduction about what we are doing as a company, to tell you a little bit about my journey into building Aether, as well as also talk a little bit about some of the challenges that I faced and some of the mistakes that I think I made, which if I would have known better, I would probably not have made. Oh, sorry. Let me just do that again. Okay, swap the views. Okay, so we as a company are basically trying to build the operating system for the rehabilitation industry. Now, if you look at the healthcare ecosystem around the globe, you will see that nearly 500 million people require some sort of assistive physical therapy devices. These can range from your simple exercise equipments to complex robotic ones such as prosthetics and exoskeletons, etc., etc. The problem that we found out within this segment of assistive devices was that there is no communication that exists between these devices and the human body. So there's basically a missing control and communication layer between the patient and these assistive therapy devices, which leads to non-intuitive control system, which is the way you control these devices, lack of biofeedback, that is, these devices do not provide you any kind of data. And because of this lack of data, there is randomized treatment approaches. Our target is to enable this communication by building the Rehab OS platform and converting these devices into smart data-driven therapy solutions. The core technologies that we work on is building these sensors which pick up the muscle and biomechanical level data. So they basically, we build sensors which are able to decode the actual musculoskeletal health of a person. We build algorithms which perform muscle health monitoring, and we build cloud software which is used for data analytics. This allows us to impact the end-to-end patient journey, and we focus on deploying our solutions in three major categories: the assistive mobility solutions, which is the hardware side or the robot side. For example, in our case right now, it's the prosthetic hand. The control and sensing solution, which is the solutions which determine how you control these devices. And finally, monitoring and training solutions, in a way of digital therapy platforms, which basically monitor the end-to-end progress or end-to-end therapy of a particular patient. Now, this is also a very important point that I would like to mention right now is whenever you're trying to build a deep tech startup, whenever you're trying to build any startup at all, there is a tendency which I have seen where people miss out on looking at the end-to-end journey of the customer. And they only look at certain touch points where their product is supposed to assist in one way or the other. Contrary to that, what I have personally seen is that when you look at the end-to-end patient journey, you will be able to find problems which can be solved parallelly with your product, and be able to provide a much better solution to your patient or your customer, etc., etc. So yeah, so of course we want to build this great rehab OS system, but we have to start somewhere, and that's why we started with a pathology specific model with upper limb amputation. The reason why we took upper limb amputation as our first pathology was because this is an area where there is a big gap in terms of very low adoption rates and very high dropout rates, making this a perfect opportunity for us to bring in a data-driven multi-model approach, which can increase this adoption and decrease the dropout among amputees. So our first solution basically is Zeus, and this is again a multi-model approach. So we are approaching the problem of upper limb amputation from three different angles. We have built Zeus, which is the multi-action bionic limb, which is actually the strongest hand on the market. And the target was to reduce the price without compromising on the efficiency and use additive manufacturing to build this product, which would allow for ease of repair as well as ease of manufacturing. Second, we developed a closed loop control system, which basically understands the intent of the user. So whenever you think of trying to do a particular action with your hands, there is a particular neural signature which arises in your muscles. We capture that signature and process that to understand the exact intent of the user. The prosthetic hand does that particular action. And then we have built sensory feedback systems which provide vibrotactile feedback back to the user, so they can basically close their eyes and still understand where the hand is in a three-dimensional space, how much force it is applying on an object, and things like that. Finally, the point which I mentioned about end-to-end patient journey mapping, we are making this a reality by the digital therapy platform, which basically tracks the device usage data and muscle health data over time. So the therapists can remotely look at the performance of patients in their real-time environment or in their real-life environment and make therapy decisions based on this data and not just on the basis of intuition. So our target is to expand aggressively on top of this rehab OS platform. So we have of course started with upper limb amputation, but we are looking at vertical expansion from upper limb amputation to muscle weakening or upper limb weakening and upper limb paralysis, and finally to more general musculoskeletal conditions such as pre and post surgical care, etc., etc. In a way, we will be transitioning from a pathology specific to a modular unified platform, and the goal would always remain the same, which is to make rehabilitation data driven and use actual musculoskeletal data for therapy programs rather than just our intuition. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we are doing right now. To talk a little bit about more personal, my personal journey into this startup. So I was definitely, I had nothing to do with the startup when I joined college. So as usual, I went to Kota. I was in Ellen Career Institute and got All India rank 143. Got into a med school, the Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College, and started studying medicine. Both of my parents are doctors, so that was kind of the reason why I started studying medicine as well. But I knew that this was definitely not my calling. I was always much more interested in the technical side of medicine rather than the clinical aspect of medicine, and that's why I actually started my journey into looking at what else can I do apart from just attending these classes. And initially we started as a biomedical club in VMMC, but very soon we knew that this thing could grow bigger, and there is an actual and definite need for the solutions that we are building in the market, and that's how Aether pretty much got started, etc., etc. After that, the first round of funding that we raised was from a healthcare accelerator based in Noida. And the reason why I'm bringing this first round of funding thing up is because it's very important to understand that irrespective of whether you are incorporated as a company or not, you have to start building your network from day one. So the way we were able to raise our first round of funding, we had absolutely nothing at that point. We had no prototype. We were two kids, 17 and 18-year-olds, and really no idea of what we were doing. And the first round of funding that we got, this angel round, was completely based on the trust that the investor had in us after knowing us for over a year. And so it's very important to start building your network right away. Don't wait to establish a company. Don't wait to come across a great idea. Just start building your network, start interacting with VCs, start interacting with other entrepreneurs as soon as you can, if you see that this is an important part of your journey, or this is something which you would like to do in the future. After that, we got a couple of grants in India. We got a grant from the Polish government, and we moved a part of our team to Poland, and we kept raising funds over here in Poland. Now, I'm primarily responsible with the fundraising side in my startup. I deal primarily with the fundraising part. And one thing which I can already tell you with respect to fundraising is a continuous, lifelong process for a startup. You cannot stop fundraising. You have to make mechanisms, you have to build mechanisms which will ensure that you are constantly keeping investors updated. You're constantly adding new investors to your bucket of connections, etc., to make sure that you'll be able to keep raising money with the least resistance out there. One of the biggest mistakes that I see founders making is they will start to raise their next round when the money is about to finish. That's negotiating from a position of weakness. Instead of that, you should think of fundraising as part of your job, as part of the job of the CEO, and make sure that this is something which you focus on from day one, as well as focus on it continuously as part of your daily work, etc. And yeah, right now, so we are a team in Poland and India. We are 20 members strong. We have distributors in multiple countries, and we are constantly looking at innovating and building more products in the field down the line. Some of the points which I can already mention to you about building a deep tech startup. One of the quotes which I like the most is, "It takes a village to raise an entrepreneur," and that is really true. And this is one thing which I've learned over time, is that entrepreneurship is something which you cannot do alone. You have to focus on a co-founding team, your early hires from the beginning, and you have to make sure that these are the guys who you can count on for a long time, and when it will actually be needed. Everybody is going to be there when the times are going to be good, but entrepreneurship, the real test to entrepreneurship comes in the hard times. So it's very important to build your network, not just with respect to other startups, with other investors, but also try to find like-minded people who have done the thing that you want to do, or who have already been there. And that's how I started as well. I was a medtech student. I was a medicine student, had no idea of technology, had no idea of programming, and I'm leading a very deep tech company right now. And this has been possible because the first person that I reached out to was a guy who followed the similar trajectory as me. He was a doctor. He went to Stanford and attended a biodesign program, and he started his own medtech company. So it's very important to find people who have followed a similar journey to yours, and are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, to make sure that you are able to build those connections. And also, it's very important to not afraid to be scrappy. In the beginning days, when you start to build a deep tech startup, it's extremely easy for all of us to underestimate the capital and the patience that would be required to get a deep tech startup off the ground. We are in a world where we see software solutions being developed in a matter of weeks, and people going to IPOs in a matter of years, and it's very easy to underestimate the capital and patience that would be required to build a deep tech startup. So please don't do that. Make sure that you when you plan your deep tech startup, nobody is expecting you to come out with a product in day one. That's one of the mistakes that I made. Was when we raised our first round of funding, it was a small check size, and I assumed that this is enough for me to make a profitable company. We have raised millions more after that, and we are still a long way away from profitability. And that is very important to know, because you have to always think in a long term. So you have to make sure that you figure out the right milestones and hit them as you go along, not try to build the entire product in a matter of weeks, or not try to fool yourself by thinking that you're going to be able to do that. So divide the bigger goal into smaller milestones, and keep updating investors, keep updating the people who you want to know about you, about these small milestones that you constantly are able to achieve as you move forward. Finally, also, please make sure that you choose your initial investors wisely. There are a lot of investors right now who have a lot of experience with deep tech, and then there are some investors who do not have enough experience with deep tech. And you have to be very, very thoughtful when you choose the investors, because deep tech is something which takes a lot of capital and patience, as I said multiple times. And you need investors who will actually support you in your journey, and who understand what deep tech companies have to go through to get their products in the market and to actually achieve that product market fit. Finally, some points which I can tell you about what not to do, which is as important as what to do, is do not try to rush in with your early hires. I made some mistakes with the early hires. Fortunately, I have a really strong team right now, and I have a really amazing co-founder who supports me a lot. But this is where I see a lot of companies fail, especially in the deep tech domain, where they do not have a right team. Either the team will be too focused on technology, or it will be too focused on the market and have no component of the technology that they're actually trying to build. So try to make sure that you have a well-rounded team from day one. The co-founding team alone should be capable of delivering your first prototype or your first version of the product out there in the market. If your co-founding team is not able to do that, then you need to rethink how your co-founding team is structured. So that is one thing which I can definitely tell you about what not to do, is do not rush the early hires. Secondly, what I have also seen is there are basically two types of innovations. There is a problem-led innovation, where you focus on a problem, and doesn't matter what technology you use, you try to solve that problem. And then there is technology-led innovation, where you have a technology and you use that technology to solve a particular set of problems. So early on, decide what kind of startup you want to be and stick with it, because that will allow you to make sure that you are able to constantly improve and deliver on the innovation. That was it from my side. I think I took a lot of time, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. And please feel free to get in touch with me. This is my email ID. This is my phone number. If you're looking for internships, if you're looking for any advices, if you're looking for any collaboration, please feel free to get in touch with me. And yeah, that's it. In case you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Yo, absolutely fascinating. Unbelievable. What? You are what? 23 years old? What?
22.
22. You're talking like you were some 50 guy. Yeah? The kind of experience you had is unbelievable. And the tech product that you're building is, I don't know, fascinating. Huh? Shilpa?
I really like this other quote as well, that when people talk about age, it's like life will beat the experience out of you.
Absolutely. No, it's superb, yeah. Superb to
Thank you. Thank
see
you, Sujit.
somebody so young being, and the kind of experiences you had. Yeah, yeah. Anupama,
Yes.
your presentation.
Okay.
Go
Shall
ahead.
I'll just share the screen. Is my screen visible now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, here you go. It's a very small and a crisp presentation. So
Sure.
very good evening, firstly. And I thank the entire group of Times of India and Chirate Ventures for giving me this opportunity to discuss the journey, the beautiful journey of We Innovate Biosolutions. So until 2019, whenever I used to go for any kind of pitching or any kind of presentation, my starting line used to be, We Innovate Biosolutions are the unsung heroes working tirelessly in the area of infection prevention and control. But today, as this webinar is going on, we are one of the most relevant deep tech companies sitting here who's addressing the most relevant problem of infection prevention and control. COVID-19, the pandemic, has taught each one of us how vulnerable we are to a simple virus, to infections. What an infection can cause, the amount, the magnitude of damage that it can cause to a nation, to an individual. So this is the reason why I say that today we are the most relevant deep tech companies. Now, this is the pandemic that you and I are witnessing. But trust me, there is a pandemic which is very silently brewing parallelly to all these pandemics. I'm talking about the problem of antimicrobial resistance. Now, antimicrobial resistance is a problem, is a problem that is going to be hitting us very badly in the near future. It is the time that we need to address the problem of AMR so that we can withstand the blow of the AMR pandemic. When I talk about this, there are a lot of antibiotics which are there in the market. Every time a new antibiotic is being made, but the time and the energy and the investment which goes into making an antibiotic is a lot more as compared to the time frame that a bacteria takes to get resistance over it. Now, AMR, when I talk about antimicrobial resistance, hospital is one of the places which is adversely impacted by the issue of AMR. The reason I say is that every time you walk into a hospital, there is a very good chance that you end up getting an infection. You heard me correct. Hospital is a place where we actually go to get better, but there are very good chances that you catch an infection from the hospital. And when you catch an infection from the hospital, it can have devastating effects, not only on the patient, but on the hospital as well. Firstly, your length of hospitalization just increases dramatically. I may be discharged in another 5 or 6 days after a simple surgery. But because I got an infection, now my length of stay increases to 15 days. Now, this causes a big, huge invoice of the hospital, which is, of course, there. Use of antibiotics, which is like breaking down my entire system. And of course, it is bad for the hospital also because hospital wants to cater to more and more people. They want to serve to more and more patients. But because of this elongated stay of people in the hospital and the aftermath, even the hospitals are not having any issues to solve the issues. So why does these hospital acquired infections happen? So when you think about why do these HAI happens, they mostly happen because of medical devices. To give you one example, a urinary catheter is an example of a medical device which is used for any patient who stays in the hospital and is bedridden for more than 2 days. It is used for assisting the urination to the patient. Now, this is a medical device which is half inserted into the patient's body and it is remaining half outside the patient's body. Once this device is out of its packing, it now becomes open. It is now actually open in the patient's body, and just the way it is allowing the patient to send the urine out of its body, it is allowing the bacteria to gain an access inside the patient's body. So it is doing both the roles. One way it is solving the issue of urination, but other way it is giving assistance to the microorganisms to gain an entry into the patient's body and cause infection. Now, these infections can have detrimental effects, which includes even death of the patients in many, many cases. So here is where we thought that why can't we make these medical devices antimicrobial in nature? If these medical devices are antimicrobial in nature, the entire issue of getting an infection because of these devices gets solved. So here is where we innovated. Here is where we made our SilvoGuard line of medical devices. We call it SilvoGuard because it is based on a very deep tech science of silver nanoparticles, which I'll come to in some time. So now this SilvoGuard Foley catheter is the first medical device that we are coming up with. Now it is a product which is a Foley balloon catheter. It is totally impregnated with active silver nanoparticles in it. So the entire body of the catheter you see is antimicrobial in nature. It doesn't cause any change in the size, in the color, in the shape of the product because of this impregnation technology. Apart from this antimicrobial activity, we have worked very closely in innovating the different areas or different pain points of this product. We have tried to engineer the tip in a perfect manner so that there is absolutely easy insertion, no stress caused to the patients. The distance between the eye and the balloon that you see has been engineered perfectly so that there is minimal urine retention. Hence, again, the infection is taken care of. So basically, we have also innovated on the packing of this product, wherein we have made the packing totally non-tearable and non-wettable, which further increases the shelf life of the product. So SilverGuard Foley catheter is going to help us address the issue of catheter-associated UTI. Now, catheter-associated UTI is actually 80% of all the UTIs which is caused in an hospital. So in a hospital, there are different types of infections. And of these, like you have UTI, you have skin infections, you have a lot of different infections. UTI is the majority of the infections, like 40% of all the HAIs are basically UTIs. And of these UTIs, 80% are caused by catheters. So imagine a medical device which is actually put into your body to help you is actually creating a nuisance to you. So there definitely was a need to make this product or to innovate this product to a level that at least this issue of infection caused by catheter is arrested. Now, this SilverGuard medical device that I'm talking about is actually based on our core technology of Weinnovate Biosolutions. We call it Nano AG site. Means nothing means it. It means nano, a form of silver nanoparticles, basically. So it is a broad spectrum antimicrobial solution which has activity against virus, bacteria, and a range of fungi. So it is highly stable. Now, when you talk about silver nanoparticles, there were various challenges in commercializing this entire silver nanoparticles to a commercial scale. So we addressed each of these issues. For example, the scalability was issue, but today today the nanoAGSite technology is able to give us silver nanoparticles in perfectly colloidal state to a tune of almost 300 liters per day. We are able to do this in a CGMP certified facility, which is like, I believe to the best of my knowledge, we are the only ones who are doing it. We are able to make this in a perfectly stable form, like the colloidal form of silver nanoparticle remains like this to a minimum of 1 year. We have done a battery of toxicity studies, like all the clinical studies with regards to its toxicity and safety and biocompatibility, and nanoAGSite has passed all those tests. So based on this core technology, we have developed our first line of product called as the SilverGuard medical device. With such kind of device in our hand, SilverGuard Foley catheter, and a core technology with our company, it is patented technology. We recently got the patent granted for nanoAGSite. The mission of Innovate Biosolution is to have zero infections and save the lives, millions of lives which are lost because of antimicrobial resistance. We have the vision to replace almost all the critical high demand medical devices with our SilverGuard predicate medical devices supported by the nanoAGSite technology. So if I, excuse me. So if I talk about my journey now, it was we actually had coffee table discussions, like myself, Dr. Milind, and Dr. Prasad, the other two founders of the company. We used to have these coffee table discussions. We were all doing our PhDs. PhDs means nothing but they are piles of research theses and all. We used to wonder that why can't these theses be actually in a market? Why can't we have an application to these researches instead of just compiling them as research articles and high impact journals and making theses and printing them? So here is where we got I would say the motivation to do something to transform our science, our knowledge into an application. And the reason we chose hospital-acquired infection is because, like Dr. Milind, who is the founder of this company, he used to visit hospitals because of his doctoral work. And there he was actually able to see the amount of damage that an infection used to cause to patients and its skin. I mean, I have my personal experience where, in fact, my mother was admitted to a hospital because of her chronic heart situation. Her heart condition was absolutely normal. It was taken care of. She was absolutely fine. But she had to undergo an entire cycle of ICU stay and again the recovering stay in the normal ward because she acquired an infection in the hospital. This was devastating. I, as a family member, know what economical stress is one thing, but the emotional stress and the the entire weakening of the system that a person goes through when you have an infection sitting in the hospital cannot be explained until you experience it. And I hope nobody sitting here in the audience experience it. Hopefully, with the help of our Silverguard devices. So we started our company in 2016, and rather I take a pause over here, and I would like to send this message across to all my young friends listening to me in the audience and attending this webinar is, if you have a belief in your science, in your technology, if you have the courage, I can do it. Trust me, anybody can do it. Creating a deep tech company and coming up with a product which is going to have an impact in the society is not difficult, especially with the current consortium, current ecosystem that we have in our country. Like from our stage one, we started with our BIG grant that we got from DBT. It was the Biotech Ignition Grant. That is how we incepted the company We Innovate Biosolutions. The reason we named We Innovate Biosolutions is because we wanted, the moment the third person says the name of the company, We Innovate Biosolutions, you become a part of the company. It's a sentence, We Innovate Biosolutions. So you automatically become a part of our journey. We got BIG, we incepted this company, then we actually formalized the entire concept of silver nanoparticles. We worked tirelessly to address all the issues that were coming in making a high quality medical grade silver nanoparticle which can be used across in different products and platforms, including medical devices, including FMCG products. So we almost spent 2 years doing that, but we then got a grant from a DST by NSTBD grant. We got a CIBRI grant from DBT. That's how we started growing. We got it. We got our patent granted. Then came the VC funding. We were invested by Chirate Ventures, and because they believed in our technology and how we're going to impact the lives of people who are actually dying because of infections, which they are not even aware of. And slowly, and today it is. Today we now have. The product which is transformed from the idea to an actual packed product, and this year we are hitting the market with our product, and we are going headstrong to with a noble mission to save the lives of people lost due to infections. In the end, the few attributes that I will say, which everybody should keep in mind is, firstly, clarity. Everyone should have a clarity as to, if you have a deep tech company, you need to have a clarity. Why have you started this company? Never ever deviate yourself from your prime focus. Your prime focus was to curb infections. You have to stick to that infections. As I just shared in the beginning of my presentation, that 2 years down the time, we were not known. People were not asking about us. People were talking about the rich man's diseases, and we were the poor ones. People used to not look at us as a deep tech company, because we were into infection prevention and control. Nobody was really bothered about infection prevention and control until, I would say, COVID-19 was a blessing in disguise for companies like us, because now we know every hour we wash our hands with soap and water. We want everything around us to be infection free. We want antimicrobial mobile covers, antimicrobial baby soaps, antimicrobial paints. We want antimicrobial fans. You think of it, and people are coming with those antimicrobial products. That is the level of threat that we have gone through. So that is where we come into picture. So focus should never be lost. And as even Dhruv said sometimes back, a team, you should not shy away from hiring people who are smarter than you. Trust me, for a successful startup, for a successful company, hire people who are smarter than you. Instead of doing everything by your own self, instead of holding back all the authorities in your hand, you should have the heart to disseminate the power, to disseminate the authorities, so that a collective effort comes in and we make up a good team, a very fruitful team, again from different branches. We should be open to suggestions, we should be open to changes, to modifications, and to challenges. Funding is a continuous process. Like as CEO of the company, like I see Dr. Milind, who's continuously in touch with people for catering our needs. We tell him that we want this money for marketing, we want this money for R&D. He makes it sure that he gets this funding for us. So that needs to happen, and that will only happen when you are more and more vocal about yourself, when you present yourself to everyone. You should not assume that this fellow may not be interested, this fellow is too small, this fellow is too big, I'm not ready for this big kind of funding, oh, this is too small, I can't access. Any money is good money, that is what I would say. So that's where I will end. And once again, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity, and yeah, we can go ahead with the questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Again, absolutely fascinating, the kind of things you guys are doing. Tell me, I mean, you still haven't started selling your product. So what are you are taking a home a salary or not?
I can't hear you clearly. Can you, hello?
Yeah, Anupama?
Yeah, please go. Can you repeat your question?
Okay, can you remove the presentation, Anupama?
Yeah. Sure. Yes. There is a very heavy rain now, suddenly, all of a sudden in Pune.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Bangalore also a little bit of rain. So tell me, you've been working on this product for a while now. How many years now?
Almost on this product, SilverGuard Foley catheter, for the past 1.5 years, and on our technology nano-AG side, past 4 years.
Okay, but you are earning some revenue or not?
We will be starting our revenue cycle with SilverGuard in this financial year.
Okay. So how are you managing? I mean, how are you managing your household needs?
Yeah, so I have to say that there was a time when we ran for almost 7-8 months with no salaries, and we were dependent on our friends and family for supporting us. So yeah, we went through all those startup journey. It was a bad time. Like until 2020 July, we were in a bad shape financially, but what we say, we were headstrong on our focus. We were like, come what may, we have to bring this to the market. And luckily, we were supported by a good family, so we could pull through that bad times. And now we have a VC funding, so we are settled.
Okay. And this product of yours, will it be more expensive than what is already there in the market? It won't be a problem selling it?
No, it's going to be an affordable product, because see, now when you talk about Foley catheter, there are 3 types or 3 categories of Foley catheter. One is a regular Foley catheter, which is actually priced very low, and we are not actually competing at trying to replace these catheters. They are hardly used for a day or two. There is the only international competitor that we have is priced at almost 1,200 rupees, and we are trying to bring this product to almost half the cost.
Okay.
So in fact, the competitor product is an infection prevention product, and ours is an antimicrobial product.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure Shilpa has questions, and there are other audience questions also coming in, but I just want to ask Dhruv this question. Dhruv, you decided to move part of your team to Poland, and you yourself have moved there. So what, there's some kinds of talent in Poland which you don't get in India, is it?
It's not really about just the kinds of talents in Poland, because we have built a team in Poland, we've built a team in India. Yes, there are some areas specifically surrounding robotics per se, especially with the work that we have to do with motor systems and gearing systems, where Germany and Switzerland are definitely the leaders when it comes to micro gearing and micro machining. So definitely there is some advantage, but the main reason for sticking with Poland or continuing the team in Poland was so that he could leverage the European grants, the European investors, as well as leverage the access to the European market as well. Nearly every bionic limb has been built in Europe up till now. Europe is sort of, it's not in America, not in Asia. Most of the bionic limbs have been, the world's first bionic limb was built in UK. The second one was built in UK as well. So Europe sort of has this high density of engineers who are working on bionics and neurotechnology per se. So that was another reason to stick with Poland.
Okay, very interesting. Shilpa?
Yeah, Dhruv, you spoke about how you're not a deep tech professional, but you went ahead and co-founded a deep tech company. What are some of the challenges that you initially went through? Because you talk about algorithms for muscle health monitoring and your entire rehab OS platform, right? So if you can talk about how you went about choosing your team and growing your venture.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, initially there was a lot of self-learning involved. I've always been a kind of person who likes to read a lot. So there was definitely a lot of self-learning involved. So the first version of the prototype, me and my co-founder, both of us were from medical background, but both of us started doing engineering courses online, and we started to learn all that we could to be able to at least build the first version of the prototype. I mean, we were very sure that we want to build the first prototype completely within the two of us to ensure that we know end to end what is going on with the product and what are the things that would be required to do this. So I worked more on the electronics and programming aspect, and my co-founder Faith worked more on the mechanical side. Now, once we had that first prototype, we could leverage that prototype to get grants. So we got a grant from the government of Gujarat, some other grants here and there, and this initial funding as well. Beyond that, it was just purely a matter of making sure that I delegate the things which I don't know anything about, and I delegate it to the right person. Now, it's a little bit tricky because if I don't know about that thing, how am I going to make sure that I'm delegating it to the right people and they're doing the right job surrounding that thing? But this is something where you have to just focus on getting as much holistic knowledge as possible, keeping your options open. I started building my advisor network from the very beginning. So, for example, some of the I also did a postgrad certificate from University of California in medical regulatory, because this is one thing where none of the members in our team had any experience in. So I knew that regulatory is a huge part of medical device development, and that's why I took that upon myself. And one of the professors who taught me is now an advisor for us, and he's actually our chief certification consultant. So I made sure that I reached out to the right people and build this advisory network to keep both sides in check. So a team with the right competences and an advisory network who can help me make sure that the team is performing as I would like them to perform in things which I don't know about.
Okay. Yeah, regulation. Yeah, that's so crucial in these medical products. Anupama, I mean, you also, I mean, dealing with government and all that. Isn't it tough?
Regulatory is specifically about a medical devices company like ours, and that was startup. Regulatory is a challenge. The only reason I say is that it is both cost intensive as well as time intensive. Like, see, we as a startup, if we have to do a regulatory pathway for our medical device that we did, spending a crore is a huge portion of our investment. See, an MNC or a pharma company or a big pharma giant can do multiple clinical trials, and they can spend crores of rupees because they already have their revenue set up. They already are a $1 billion company. So what they are doing currently is, I would say, spending a portion of their profit into the regulatory pathway for their upcoming products. But for us as a startup, we to invest that much of time and that much of money is a very, in fact, to be honest, we started with a pharma product. We had an innovative gel. It's used to treat diabetic ulcers. But we realized that it will take a very long time from its regulatory pathway to be cleared. And as I told you sometimes back, that we had to start generating revenue soon. The VCs were it was not a very lucrative proposition for the VCs also to wait for so long. So that's how we actually went into a medical device which is not so time intensive when it comes to regulatory pathway. So yeah, regulatory challenges are there, especially for a startup.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But you managed to do everything in about 2 years, is what you're saying. Is you started this
Yes.
catheter project about a year and a half ago, or
Yes.
2019, you say?
Yes. See, the catheter comes in in class B device. So
Hmm.
we were able to, go through all our like we applied for test license. We did all the bar compatibility studies, which is required, and then a manufacturing license also we got. So I would say, yeah, for SilverGuard, we were able to do the same. The entire timeline of regulatory would not be more than 7 or 8 months in this case.
But what are the research and all that? The research part of it.
Research part, as I told you, for nano AG side, we started the research in 2016, 2017.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes. So,
Okay, much earlier.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some audience questions coming in.
Yeah, lots. Yeah.
Yeah, lots. Yeah, this one is from Rahul Chakrabarti. How close are we from a bionic arm, which is as good as the real arm, like the one from Bucky Barnes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe has?
We're quite far away from that, to be honest. And there are two ways to respond to this question. One is, first of all, with respect to how bionics are built today, the target is not to achieve a human-like functionality. The target is to help amputees do their daily life jobs with freedom and independence. Now, this, like, human hand is an extremely, it's an amazing piece of engineering, and trying to copy it sometimes makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. So the way we take our decision making process is always based on the intended movements that we want to achieve, or the intended task that we want to do, not on trying to copy the human hand. Second, if I were to talk in a 10-year timeline on how close are we with respect to bionics, I think from a motion control perspective, which is how sophisticated robotic hands can be built, we are quite close. If you would have looked into NASA's humanoid projects, or there are a lot of research is done on anthropomorphic hands, which can, our human hand has, I think, 26 degrees of freedom. So these type of limbs can activate up to 26 degrees of freedom. The bigger problem that comes is in how you control them. How can you translate? The best thing about us as human beings is we are able to take a lot of micro decisions which we don't even know about, which are happening all the time based on these neural signals. So how do you integrate these bionic limbs with your human body and control them in an intuitive manner? So that is actually the part of the problem that we are working on, which is something called pattern recognition, which tries to decode your intent. So whenever you make a particular gesture, when you're trying to do close your hand, make a fist, make a tripod, or do a key grip or whatever, different types of muscle signals generate. And we are trying to look at these muscle signals and then interpret, okay, if this is what the muscle signal looks like, this is what the intended motion should be. So this is something which will definitely take time to get to a level where we are able to predict our motor intent in a very good way.
Thanks.
Yeah. I have this question from Samshui Holi. How important is hardware in deep tech? What would be the importance of hardware versus software in this field? Both of you are a mix of, I think, products which are doing a mix of the two, right? Is it? I'm not sure about Anupama's product, but Dhruv's, I think there's a lot of hardware and software, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, to like hardware, there is always this debate about hardware and software. On VCs are always looking at, okay, great startup, great story, but there is hardware component involved. That's why we are not super interested. So that I have faced this challenge quite a lot, and that's why we are also transitioning from a hardware company to a hardware plus software company. But I still think that hardware plays a crucial role in a lot of deep tech companies, and just because some VCs are afraid of this or it's harder to do it doesn't mean that you should not do it. But at the same time, there are a lot of beautiful things when it comes to pure software startups, recurring revenue, high smaller sales cycle, etc., etc. So you need to look upon, whenever you're building a startup and there is a hardware component involved with it, you have to always look at it from a risk management standpoint, which is how can I reduce the risk associated with this being a hardware startup. So for example, we on surface, we are a pure hardware startup. Okay, we sell bionic limbs, but there's a lot of software behind it. We're working on software as service models for the digital therapy platform to make sure that we can generate recurring revenues as well. Secondly, it's also very important to innovate around the business models as well. So we are exploring hardware as a service model, where instead of just selling the bionic limbs, we can try to get them on a monthly subscription basis, just like a lot of other products that are out there right now. Third, with respect to delivery of a certain product, hardware definitely has, I mean, it's a hardware thing. You need to ship it somewhere. It's not as scalable as software. So you need to make sure that you find solutions around it. That's why we are trying to use additive manufacturing, which means that our products can be locally manufacturable in around the world. So we can have decentralized manufacturing basically. So we can build products in India, we can build products in Poland, we can build products in US, because at the end of the day, it uses the same machine. Doesn't matter where it gets built. So using this decentralized manufacturing and decentralized servicing, we can look at scalability in a very different way that is just not possible with standard subtractive manufacturing. So yeah, to sum up, hardware is an important part of deep tech. If you are doing this, then make sure that you implement the right business models, and you have given enough thought to make sure that people don't say no to you just because of some of the inherent defects in hardware.
So Sujit, I like to add to this actually, because this hardware software integration is also there in our field. In fact, we're already at the ideation stage. So what we are trying to propose is, like now we're talking about a battery of SilverGuard medical devices. So we are trying to integrate a software component by means of AI, for example, like when a medical device is put into a patient's body, there are a lot of vital parameters that a doctor needs to collect time to time, like whether the patient has fever, what's the temperature of the patient, whether there is any particle, what's the pH of the urine, for example. So so we are trying to imbibe a artificial intelligence component or a small chip kind of a thing into this Foley catheter, which once goes into the patient's body, the doctor will get on his mobile and through an app. Okay, the patient is having this temperature, this pH, there is no change, the patient doesn't have infection. So this is an innovation that already is at an ideation stage. The only thing we're going little slow on is because it's a terribly cost intensive process. I'm sure Dhruv will agree to it. So, and of course, from regulatory point of view, also we'll have to put it into a totally new regulatory pathway. So it is equally important in medical devices, because see, ultimately, Weinnovate wants to reach the life of every single patient. We want to touch the lives of these patients. That will happen only when we have an app through which we will be able to collect the real-time data of the patients. The doctors can see it and can monitor it more effectively. Yeah.
Yours is more of a hardware product. So funding-wise, investors little more wary, is it, or what is your sense? Chirate, of course, invested, but generally speaking, Dhruv was saying, are investors wary of hardware startups?
To be honest, we didn't feel like that. I don't feel like that investors, because see, the ultimate application that we're talking about is going to be a consumable. It's going to be a medical consumable, like a disposable medical consumable. So it's a product in itself. It's not like unlike Dhruv or like the Aether, which is like proper, which is a proper robotic arm, which is a all in all a hardware, I would say, product. This is a product which is a disposable product, which is then with an innovation in it. So I do not see any investors shying away from it, because it's like hardware.
Okay. Shilpa?
Yeah, we have this question from Rakesh Chaudhary. How do we address the problem of educating the healthcare providers on installation, usage, and maintenance of these deep tech biotech products? I understand Dhruv's products is a bit more niche and can spur technicians specifying in this field. But what Anupama and co are trying to build is much more commonly used equipment in hospitals.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you for this fantastic question. So building a product is one part. Like we have made this Foley catheter, that's one part. Now, as a responsible company working in this area of infection prevention and control, we already are having training manuals We intend to now, whenever the COVID pandemic will allow us to do the traveling, but till then we are doing it through webinars. We want to meet the nurses. We want to meet the doctors who are actually implanting these devices who are in the patient's body. We want to educate them. There are standard protocols available. There are do's and don'ts which are already being given by WHO, as standard guidelines to avoid infections. We want to ensure that the nurse or the healthcare worker who is handling our catheter is very well aware of it, and not just aware of these do's and don'ts, but is implementing it. So we are trying to actually go door and door and educate these nurses by means of training sessions, training workshops in hospitals, in polyclinics, in rural places, everywhere, So that is where we are trying to ensure that not just the product, but even the handling should be so good that the infection is taken care of. Yeah.
Dhruv, you want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this is one of the things which I mentioned in the presentation was it's not just about building a product, but it's about solving patients' problems across the end-to-end patient journey and trying to do that across multiple touch points per se. So training, I mean, one of the things that we have tried to do with respect to this is we have tried to digitize things as much as possible. So, I mean, as we all know, last year was COVID's year, and we still managed to conduct clinical POCs in 15 countries. And that goes to show the level of digitization that we have brought, where we did not go to any of these countries, but we were able to just ship the product, ship the digital therapy platform, give people the access to that, and they have all the training modules online which guide them through using such devices. So this makes sure that we can do things in a more scalable way, rather than going on a rather than being stuck with one-to-one training all the time. Of course, at the same time, we are also working on in-house clinicians, because I've seen a lot of medtech startups not have clinicians on board, which is kind of weird, because I don't know how you can build a medtech startup without clinicians on board. So we started getting clinicians on board, and now we have a full-time prosthetist as well on board, who is who is who is always assisting in the first time fitting. Whenever a prosthetic center fits the Zeus hand for the first time, our in-house prosthetist is there, free of charge, free of cost, for them to ensure that the first fitting goes perfect. And once they're done with the first time, then it becomes much easier for them. But yeah, at the same time, it's important, these things will get updated all the time. The product will get updated, the trainings will need to be updated according to that. So that's why it's very important to find digital ways to basically do that.
I have a question on blockchain from John Paul. He's asking, I mean, where are any of you using blockchain at all, or thinking of using blockchain? He's asking whether blockchain can be helpful in deep tech.
No idea about this.
No, okay. Anupama, no, okay. Then there's this question from Susan Adak. What should we do? This is for Anupama, obviously. What should we do to protect ourselves from superbugs? How can tech help solve this problem? Of course, you have already done one product, but generally speaking, what else?
Generally speaking, see, when we were in our school, we were taught proverbs as the first, kind of in grammar. We were taught proverbs in English language. One of the very first proverbs that were taught to us was cleanliness is next to godliness. We have to exactly do that. We have to follow good hygiene practices. We have to maintain cleanliness around us. That is one of the, I would say, basic thing and the primary thing which we all as an individual, as an institution, as a family, should follow to protect ourselves from infections. That's the first thing. Second thing, going to a next level, wherein maybe if you are exposed to some antibiotics or drug, we should try and minimize the overusage of anything. Overusage of anything can lead to resistance. So you have to use things in the quantities which is being prescribed. Do not go in for indiscriminate usage or overusage or abuse of anything. Let it be your floor cleaners, let it be your antibiotics, So these simple rules that you do, I would say, put it this way, as a simple person, not as a company person, I would just say that you should do these simple things to protect ourselves from, in super bugs around us. Yes.
Okay.
We don't have to be scared of them, of course. They are all around us when I say this. We don't have to be scared of us. We have to follow these usual practices, whatever. See, we are sitting in India. We are blessed with such rich heritage, and we are blessed with such rich knowledge, from our sages and from our elderlies. That if we follow what they have been preaching us, telling us, and even if you follow those simple things, like before you enter the home, you should wash your feet and hands and then enter the home. Before you eat your meal, you should wash your hands and eat your meal. You should wash your utensils and eat your food in good stainless steel, or basically good utensils, not in disposable things. These simple things that India has taught us, we should follow it, so that will help us protect ourselves from the superbugs. I'll put it simply like that.
Okay, so don't wait for
In
technology
fact,
to solve problems. There are many things.
in fact, I'll just add to this. The reason why we got stuck to silver, everybody who's listening to me right now must have had their first spoon of honey or water in silver spoon. Our grandmoms and our moms have done that, okay, it is acha hota hai ye. So why silver? You have to be inquisitive. Why was silver given to me? So that is how we percolate the knowledge that silver has some beneficial activities to it. That's how we came to, okay, now we can go to nano form of silver. So nano form is much better than regular form. In nano form, these are the challenges. That's how we built our story, built our technology, and came to a point where today we are in a much.
So are you planning to use this technology in other products?
We already have a lot of clients onboarded for non-medical or non-regulated areas. We are talking about, in fact, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we formulated our first ever alcohol-free hand sanitizer based on nanoagicide. So we realized, I have a 3.5-year-old kid, so putting alcohol on his hand again and again was drying up his hands, and I personally found it not safe and not very good, the skin dehydration and all. So that is where we realized that we need to have an alcohol-free hand sanitizer. So we developed that. It was it's a beautiful product. I still use it for myself, for everybody in my family. We are talking to people for its application in perfumes, in deodorants, in gel-based formula, in paints, in water disinfection. I mean, we are talking a lot of clients. So we have a regulated arm and a non-regulated arm of our company right now. Yes.
Okay.
So we have a lot of clients in a bucket list already for the non-regulated ones.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Hey, wonderful talking to both of you. I mean, we are out of time. Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm sitting in the dark. There's some generator issue and the power hasn't come on yet. Sorry about that. But wonderful talking to both of you. Amazing things you guys are doing. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard some of those things. But yeah, all the best to you, Dhruv, and to Anupama.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From both Shilpa's and my side, and from TOI side, thanks for coming on the platform. Great discussion.
Yeah. Sujit, I just want to add one last thing, that I couldn't add because I thought we were running out of time. When I was talking about the passion and the belief, we, as I told you, we actually started as 3 friends sitting together and having discussions and, forming an idea. But today we are talking about a product which is an all India made product. It is a technology which is made in India,
Absolutely.
which is totally conceptualized in India, which has gone through the entire development pathway in India.
Absolutely.
And it is for Indians, so we are trying to support this mission of Atmanirbhar Bharat,
Got it.
this is also one factor which actually keeps motivating us in doing better and better, and
super. But you can also export it at some point, I'm sure, no?
Yeah, of course, we'll be very soon. In fact, we are going to go for CE marking. CE marking again is a very cost intensive process, but yes, we are going to go for it because we need to add it to our revenue cycle. We have to expand our business. We right now in India, we're already there in 5 states. We already have our existence through our distributor partners in 5 states, and we are voraciously going to cover India by this year and the entire India, in fact, pan India by this year end. Yeah.
Dhruv, are your products available in India?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. One can get it.
Our head office is in New Delhi. You can, anybody who wants to get a product, just write us an email and we will be there for you.
Okay. Super. Hey, thanks so much, Dhruv, Anupama. Lovely talking to you.
Same here.
Perfect.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.